Historymakers. Historymakers.
Hi, and welcome to Historymakers. I'm Matt Prater. Today we are speaking with Transparent. Now we've just had Transparent at New Hope, Brisbane, our church, and he got up and did a song, The Greatest of All Time, and man, it rocked. The whole place was on their feet, jumping around, and I was so inspired. I did my DC Talk rap as well, which was great fun.
Yeah.
And it is a real privilege to have you in the studio. Welcome to Historymakers.
Thank you very much, bro. I'm just excited to be here today, man, and be here with you. And I had an awesome time with you at church, and I'm just thankful to be alive today, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I can tell that you have just got, it's like you're jumping out of your skin. You've just got the testimony of Jesus shining out of you, and I'd love to hear your story. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing in the States, what part you're from, what your parents were like, what was it like for you growing up?
Awesome. Well, I'm from Richmond, California, which is in Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, and pretty much my upbringing is kind of similar to a lot, unfortunately, a lot of the young people that are in that area. My mom and dad pretty much were young when they had me. They weren't around. I was then raised by my grandparents, who were very religious, very into church, and so with that, they decided that they were going to make me go to church as much as they went. So I was at church probably Tuesday through Sunday. Maybe my only off day was Monday, and I mean, we're going to everything from usher board meetings to choir rehearsals to Bible studies to then, once I became a teenager, now me teaching Sunday school classes. So that was pretty much what how my upbringing was for the majority of my teenage years. But at the same time, I was actually, living a double life, and I was actually living out what I was seeing. And although I had told myself as a young guy that I wouldn't be fake, I wouldn't be two-faced. If I was going to live a certain way, then that's the way that I was going to live. But I started to see it so much, from others in the church and other people who took on this religion, that there would be one thing on Sunday, and then the rest of the days out the week until Sunday came around again, they would be totally different. And although I said that I would never be that, that's what I started being. In the daytime, that's when I was there for God. When night came around, I was the totally different animal, and that pretty much followed me all the way out of high school, and when I was in high school, my grandparents, like I said, they had me going to church. It was more of a forced thing. I know now that I look back that it was for my own good, for me to learn the things of God. It's just at that time, I wasn't really taught application, so I was getting a lot of information without the transformation taking place. And so then once I left high school, I went to high school in Oakland, California at Bishop O'Dowd High School. Once I left high school, I graduated and went to Fresno State University, and went out there to pursue business management. I wanted to make money. I knew that that's what my father was doing, although he wasn't doing it in a legal way. I said, well, maybe I can be a little better than him and be more positive. And so I went to school for business management. Ended up only staying in that for about a year and a half, and when my sophomore year came around of college, I actually ended up meeting a young lady who was a year under me, and one thing led to another. We ended up having a child, and my first son was born on June 10th, 2002, and like I said, I was just a sophomore in college, and my family was kind of like, are you going to finish school? And the only thing that kept me in school was I didn't want to be the example that my dad was to me at the time. And so I said, yeah, I'm going to finish school, and I'm going to try to be the most positive and good person that I can be for my son. That only lasted about 5 days, and I started going back to my old ways, and now being outside of my grandparents' authority, I wasn't going to church. You know, I like to say a CEO Christian, which is a church and Easter only. You know, those are the only times that I went to church. But I always, on those days that I went, I could always feel God kind of like tugging at my heart. You know, and I knew that there was more for me. I just didn't know how to go about getting that. So time passed. My son started mimicking and doing everything that I was doing, saying the wrong things, acting out the things that he seen his dad acting out, pretty much like I was doing back in the day. So it was kind of like a generational curse was starting to take place. And so that went on for about 3 solid years, you know, and in that I was dealing drugs. I'd even delved into the whole pimp world where I had prostitutes and just hustling, selling any and everything to make $1, you know, although I was going to college, you know, and I should have been there just focusing on my education. I pretty much was doing any and everything that I seen and heard my father was doing, and I wanted to fit into the culture and the people around me. And so, like I said, my son saw all of this taking place. You know, he even to the extent where he was going with me to pick up different people, drop off certain things, and I thought that's what being a man was, you know. But in the back of my mind, I always remembered those things that my grandparents would tell me, you know, and they did. They trained me in a way that I should go. And although I didn't stick to it, I never could fully depart from those things, from that information that they gave me. And so, you know, after a while, I was like, I need a change. You know, I was 22, going on 23, and I told myself as a young guy that I would be a millionaire by the time I got to 22. And I wasn't even a hundredaire at the time. I had really not too much money in my pocket for all the foolish things that I was doing. I had nothing to show for it, but a whole bunch of talk. So, you know, going into my 23rd birthday, I was like, something needs to change. And, you know, my son's birthday was coming around. He ended up turning 3. And that's probably around the time God was like, you are being exactly what you didn't want to be. You know, you're being everything that you said that you would grow up to be the opposite of. And so even with God saying that, I still didn't know how to be like he wanted me to be. I said, I'm trying to be good. I'm not cursing as much. I'm not hanging out as much. I'm pretty much here with my son, you know. But God has something different in store for my life, like he has in store for everybody's life. And so on July 6, 2005, that was like the pivotal day that my life got changed and I started pursuing Christ. And to make a long story extremely short, I was hanging out with a young lady that I had no business hanging out with, doing some things that we had no business doing. And on that night, I was driving back from hanging out with her, and I was driving back to my apartment complex, and it was raining. And those that know Fresno, if you've ever been to California, you've been to Fresno, when it rains extremely hard. And my windshield wipers were not working at the time. So I'm just driving, and at that point, I was feeling down already that I wasn't being a great father. I wasn't being a great example, not a good role model, and I was following everything that my dad had done to me. I was like, if I don't live, or if I don't make it to see home, I'm fine with that. You know, now that I look back, I don't know if there were thoughts of suicide, but it was just, I didn't have any hope then, you know. And about 5 minutes after that, I got a phone call, and mind you, it's about 4:30 in the morning, and the phone was my grandmother, and she got on the phone, and her first question was, "Hey son, how are you doing?" And I'm not one to lie to my grandmother or my grandparents, and I said, "I'm not doing too good." You know, and I explained to her everything that was going on in my life, everything that I had just been involved with earlier that day, earlier that night. And honestly, from there to the time that I made it home, I don't remember a thing. You know, it's almost like I blacked out, but I made it home safely. And all I remember is that I went over, I got in my house, went to my bed, kneeled down, and I remember praying. And I remember her praying with me. And my prayer, the end result of my prayer was, God, if you will let me see tomorrow, if you'll let me be alive another day, I will live for you. I didn't know what that looked like, because I didn't have too many models of that, especially me being a young guy. I seen older people doing it, and I used to say, once I get older, I'll do it. But I never really seen too many people my age modeling what it looked like to live for Christ.